Hello and welcome to my dungeon. If you've played or GM'd RPGs for a while, you might come to find that all the interesting stuff happens in towns and castles and of course in dungeons. While everything that happens in between is just boring filler. Traveling through this filler can boil down to tedious slog of repetitive die rolls and meaningless random encounters and combat. But as someone who just came back from a 10-day motorcycle trip through Northern Europe, I can tell you that the travel itself can be the most fun part of the adventure. But how do we translate and use this in RPGs? Let me give you some ideas. I have three major talking points I want to focus on. First is discovery and surprise. While your group, your player characters are traveling, there needs to be something that they can learn about the world, discover, and be surprised and amazed by it. You can't just have a blank map with nothing in it to discover, or with just mundane stuff that is not worth discovering. This is one of the aspects I find most enjoyable in computer RPGs, like in Elden Ring, just for hours riding through the world and finding all the hidden items and dungeons. And before that, I have greatly enjoyed just wandering through the wilderness in Skyrim to see what I can find, or before that in Gothic or in Zelda. The second talking point is challenges. The travel needs to challenge the skills of your players, the problem-solving skills, the social skills, the tactical skills. It can't just be a super easy and trivial series of skill check or die rolls. The travel needs to be more engaging. There needs to be something to challenge the problem-solving skills of your players, just like in a dungeon. And my third talking point is meaningful choices. This is maybe one of the most important aspects of a TTRPG, because it is the only medium that I know of that gives you truly an infinite possibility of choices, thanks to the GM who can react to all the choices and have the world react to all the choices and improvise what the consequences of all of these choices can be. If you've got no choices, if you're just traveling from point A to point B in a straight line and have no say over what happens in between, then you might as well read a book. Like, if the road forks left and right, no matter which direction you go, you end up in the same destination, then it's just an illusion of choice. And once again, you might just go read a book or watch a Netflix show. This topic interests you, consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. There's a lot more where this video came from. Also, check out the video description. You will find some affiliate links for cool RPG stuff. And any money I make out of that, I put back into buying more cool RPG stuff to make videos for the channel. Thanks a lot. So, how do we implement these three aspects into our RPG game? For discovery and surprise, you might just put a lot of cool stuff into your campaign map, into your world map. Just chuck it full of that stuff, so that whichever direction the group goes to travel, there's cool stuff to find. The drawback of this is it can be a lot of work to create this vast world to explore, and the group will only see a tiny portion of it. So it's okay if you do all of this work and then publish the adventure for 100 or 1,000 groups to play. But for just one game, one group, it's a lot of work. But there are methods to boil this down to a more manageable amount of work without robbing your players of the illusion that there's a vast world to explore. You could, for example, prepare for each session 3 cool locations, 3 cool encounters, NPC encounters, and then as the group goes out to explore the world, you can put these locations and encounters and mix and match them up. For example, you could have prepared the obvious one, the ghost pirate ship with the cool ghost pirate captain that the group can meet on the open sea. But you could mix that up. Maybe the ghost pirate captain was ousted by a mutiny, and instead he is now marooned on Skull Island. And when the players go out and explore Skull Island, they meet him there, and he's out for revenge. He wants to get on the character's ship and search after the ghost ship. Maybe he'll possess one of the player characters to get his way. Totally different encounter, but still using the 3 locations and the 3 encounters we have prepared beforehand. You could also make up random tables full of cool stuff, like a D6 table, a D8 table, a D20 table. If you're feeling really inspired and motivated, D100 table of cool stuff to encounter. Then as the party goes along, you roll on the table and see what they encounter. Random tables have the great advantage that you as a GM don't know what the die roll will be, unless you roll in preparation. But if you just roll on this on the table as the game progresses, you as the GM will be surprised, which can be a lot of fun. I'd like to mention here the Forbidden Lands, which uses both of these methods to a degree. For one, it has great random tables, great random encounters that really have a vast span of different types of encounters and colorful NPCs and monsters and random locations and events. And they also have great random tables to generate more encounters and places of interest. And they have a good selection of adventure signs, of places of interests, and you can put them freely on the campaign map wherever you decide to, wherever is convenient for you and whenever is convenient to you. So if the group is exploring a random wilderness hex and you think, oh, this is getting kind of boring, just drop a dungeon right in there and it's good to go and mix up the adventure. My second talking point, challenges. It comes from your random encounters, from your discoveries. These are going to present the challenges. It can be something that blocks the path of travel, like a broken bridge, a band of bandits, a wildfire, a random wild dragon appearing overhead. And when you prepare your random tables or your map, make sure to put a huge variety of different challenges, different encounters in there to challenge the different skills of your players. Your tacticians with combat encounters, with varied combat encounters that use terrain and mix and match interesting type of monsters. Your socializers, put some NPCs there in conflict with each other, several parties. Let them use their diplomacy skills to get through situations. And your puzzle solvers, your problem solvers, put in these obstacles like broken bridges, forest fires, avalanches and whatever, and let them come up with a solution on the spot to get through this situation. Now the next step would be to mix all of that up, present the situation, and then let your players decide how they want to handle it. The bandit encounter could very well be the tactical combat. but it could also be a social encounter. Try to talk your way through the bandits without paying the toll, or only paying a minimal toll, or maybe even recruit the bandits as new followers. And it could even become the puzzle-solving challenge. Maybe instead of getting into the ambush of the bandits, you prepare a clever trap and lure the bandits into an ambush yourself. All you as a GM have to do is not come up with a predetermined way to solve these situations, and be open for whatever way the players suggest and want to handle the problem. So if you have a random encounter on your random table or on your map with a band of goblin bandits, when it happens, don't just let them roll initiative, but describe them and then ask them what they want to do. And depending on that, either go into diplomacy mode, puzzle solving mode, or let them roll initiative if they so choose. Concerning travel, especially in old school RPGs and RPGs that put a lot of focus onto travel and wilderness exploration, is resource management. And that certainly can be a challenge for the problem-solving skills of your players if it is involved enough. What kinds of resources do you need to take with you? Food, water, firewood, tents, winter clothing maybe. Do you need to hire someone to carry it for you, to keep watch at night? Do you need some beasts of burden, some mules, or maybe a boat to ferry all your stuff around and get where you want to go? That's the preparation of the journey. But during the journey, during the travel itself, I only find resource management interesting if it leads either to discoveries and surprises, to encounters, or if it leads to meaningful choices. And that usually only happens when your resources run out, when you are forced to make camp and scavenge and hunt for more food, for example. Or when you need to make the decision to either make camp and search for new food, or maybe slaughter the mule for meat. The game systems in a lot of these games, and again the Forbidden Lands are an example, a negative example this time of this, can be quite die roll heavy. If you have to make 3 skill checks just to travel 1 hex, and your group is traveling 10, 20 hexes to get to their destination, it can really become a slog to go through all of that. Usually interesting stuff only happens if the players mess up the roll and you roll onto the tables with the bad stuff that is happening. So to keep this on a manageable level of die rolls, I would just have them pass normally without having to roll, as long as the circumstances are favorable. So favorable weather, maybe a road to follow, and only let them roll the check if they are facing extraordinary difficulty, like bad weather, storms, freezing cold, scalding hot, difficult terrain, no roads, ravines, sand, swamp. When the skill checks become actually hard to pass, and failure is a very real possibility, and with that failure the interesting consequences that come from that, only then let them roll. And both of the first aspects kind of lead into the third aspect, meaningful choices. To even make a meaningful choice, you first have to give your players enough information about the situation so they can make an informed decision. Let me give you a really simple example from a dungeon. You come up to a T-section, corridor goes left, corridor goes to right, and if you tell your players, yeah, both corridors are exactly the same, then even though there is a decision to make, it's not a meaningful one. They have no information to go on. They could just flip a coin and go left or right, doesn't matter anyway. But if you give them a bit of information, like maybe, yeah, in the left corridor you smell rotting corpses, And in the right corridor you can faintly hear scurrying noises. Then there is something differentiating these two directions, and now the players can make a decision where to go. And that is the same during travel. If they are coming onto a fork in the road, you got to give them some information of where these roads will go. Maybe they can see some landmark in the distance, like rising smoke from the chimneys of a village, or dust clouds going up, flock of birds, or a swarm of scavengers circling over something. If you're going in a hex crawl and the party has to decide which direction to travel next, it should be possible to go onto a vantage point, onto a hill, or climb onto a tree and see into the next hex, to at least see what type of terrain it's going to be. And then again, you can give them further information. Maybe there's a tower rising in the distance. Maybe they can see a herd of white animals moving in the distance. And once the party has the information, it's also important that there are no super easy answers. Back to the corridor question. If the corridor on the left is obviously a deadly trap and the corridor on the right leads to the next room, then there is no choice here. But if maybe the corridor to the left leads into a puzzle challenge and the corridor to the right leads into combat, then the party can make a decision. And both answers might be right, depending on the type of party and what condition they're in. They'll have to discuss that and make up their mind. Back to a fork in the road challenge. Maybe they'll have to trade off ease of travel and time. Like the road ahead leads through a ravine, perfect place for an ambush, or through a steep mountain they likely will have to climb, maybe leave their mules behind, but it will be much quicker to go over the mountain. Or they'll take the long way around, which is safer and they can take their mules, but will take a lot longer. That's the decision to go over the Karaderas and face the storm and the winter cold, or go through the mines of Khazad-dûm and face the great dark and dangers that might lurk there. This goes back to the encounters. Present the encounters and then let the party choose how to proceed here. Talk to the bandits, pay the toll, sneak around the bandits, or fight the bandits. So build these types of decisions into your maps, or a good random hex generator will do it on its own and create types of hexes that are different enough so that there is a choice in which direction to go next and it will be meaningful. And lastly, you've got to make these choices have consequences. You've got to make them story relevant. If you roll on the random encounter table and there's a white dragon flies overhead, and the party decides to hide from it, then you've got to note down that white dragon. Remember that it is there, that this might be its territory, that it probably has a lair nearby. It might be terrorizing nearby villages. You've got to use what has randomly occurred in the game and continue to develop it, reference it, have it consequences. This way, what you randomly rolled for will feel to your players like you had prepared it all along, because it becomes part of the story after all. And also you've got to carry the consequences of the choices of the players throughout the campaign. If the players decide to fight and kill the bandits that they encounter, then there will be no more bandits on the road. But what did they do with the corpses? Did they bury them properly with the proper rites? Or next time they come through here, there will be wolves or vengeful spirits or undead zombies. If they decide to talk to the bandits, what will the bandits do next? Will they get more members? Will they become more aggressive, fortify their position, move into another hex? If they recruit the bandits, then you suddenly got new NPCs to work with, give them some character, see what kind of relationship they form to the party. You got to make note of these things and just incorporate them into your world building, make it your own. And that's pretty much all I have on this topic for now. Discoveries, challenges, and meaningful choices. Really, this isn't only relevant for Travelsborn, for any place of an RPG, I'd say. Well, these are just my thoughts. Let me pose the question back to you. What do you think makes travel really interesting? Or what's the most memorable random encounter you ever happened upon during travels? Let me know in the comments below. For now, I bid thee farewell, dreamers. May the traveler watch over your journey until we shall meet again.